Good morning. Welcome back to Passionate World Radio Network. Distinguish yourself from the ordinary. And today we're continuing with authors being interviewed from the International Miami Book Festivals. So the first one up, his name is Jonah Winter, and with a co-author, Terry Widener. They wrote a book called My Name is James Madison Hennings. So good morning.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I just thought I'd mention that actually it's a picture book, and I wrote the book, and Terry Widener was the illustrator. Just to clarify that.
Thank you very much. That
sure.
makes it so everybody knows. The illustrations are awesome. My son is an illustrator, so I can make comparisons like that and get away with it.
That's okay. I just wanted to make that clear from the beginning. Okay. Terry Widener is a great illustrator. He's one of the best ones we have in this country. I'm so happy that he illustrated this book. So
he did an excellent job. Why did you decide to write a picture book about Thomas Jefferson and his lover, Sally Hennings?
Well, it's not actually. The book is more about James Madison Hennings. It was basically, my goal was to talk about the world of Thomas Jefferson from the point of view of his enslaved son, Madison Hennings. And my reasoning was this. Madison Hennings may not have been famous, and he may not have written the Declaration of Independence or served as President of the United States like his father, but he was a human being, and he had a story. And I think it's an important story, which sheds a lot of light on Thomas Jefferson and the topic of slavery. And Madison Hennings' story has never before been told to children, at least to very young children, in picture book form. Also, I believe that every person is a point of view, and that every point of view is valid in some way. And I believe that Madison Hennings' point of view is particularly valuable, something that many children would be able to connect with emotionally, because this is a first-person narrative. Many children know what it means to have an emotionally unavailable parent. And so my hope is that all kids would be able to empathize with the sadness of a young boy who spends his entire childhood enslaved by the person who is apparently his father, but doesn't act like it.
And you also brought up something else. When I went to school in the 50s, they wouldn't dare put this in the history books. They would not dare to even discuss the fact that slaves were humans, that they had their story, and that they were brought to this country against their will, and that there was injustice in the world. If you remember being taught about the fathers of the Revolution, they were perfect.
Oh, absolutely. You know, here in America, we tend to whitewash our history and sweeping the more unpleasant parts under the rug. At least in our education of children, we do this, but also in the way we talk amongst ourselves as adults. And just as we whitewash the atrocities we're still committing. And my position as an author in 2016 is that we brainwash our children with the concept of, quote-unquote, American exceptionalism. We teach them about how great George Washington was without focusing on the crimes against humanity he committed by enslaving 300 human beings. We teach them about how Thomas Jefferson came up with the radical concept of all men are created equal without focusing on his essential hypocrisy as a man who owned two other human beings and ones who certainly weren't equal. We also tend to teach our children, we tend not to teach our children in this country about the 400-year-old war on African Americans that we continue to wage through our culture and justice system. And we don't teach them about the essential racism that has always been at the core of white America. And yet, you know, for most children of color in this country, that essential racism, it's just a fact of life.
Or that women and children, especially children, were considered property. And that's the thing that I didn't realize how bad it was until Abraham Lincoln said I was reading a book, and he said, well, when Abraham was sent out to work on his neighbor's farms, his father sold his labor to the farmers and used his son to do all this extra work, and then when it was time to pay Abraham, the money went directly to his father.
Oh, absolutely. Well, when this country was founded, the only people who had any power or any right to vote, as you probably know, were
the white landowners, were the
wealthy white men, because women, children, Native Americans, African Americans, even middle class or lower middle class men did not have any rights, and so that was the country that they founded. And we like to glorify the founding fathers, but I think it would be better for us spiritually and intellectually if we faced these facts rather than ignoring them. And that's the last few books I've written have many of them have had to do with this. I actually wrote a book on the founding fathers that's called, appropriately enough, the Founding Fathers! And it was illustrated by Barry Blitt, who I think is our nation's greatest political cartoonist. Whose images adorn the cover of the New Yorker, which I think is helping a lot of us to get through this particular election cycle. But this book presents a lot of the facts that a lot of American history textbooks are not going to present to children, such as what the facts we've been talking about.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And it's a shame that it's that way, because I have 3 grandkids. And I know that when they want to hear history stories, they either come to me or their grandfather, or their father. And we don't quite tell it the way it's being still presented in school. And as one of them said, if it wasn't for us, they would not have a realistic understanding of why our nation is the way it is, which is quite a mouthful for kids who are going to be 10. This November they're going to be a decade old, which is a big deal for them.
Yeah.
So I really feel that a book like this is very important. I'm glad to hear that you're writing other books like this, because I really feel that African American kids really aren't given any voice at all. It's bad enough the women are suppressed and, the men are been hunted down and shot like animals. But it doesn't make it any better when you try to explain to a 9-year-old, well, it's okay for a white man to go out and go to bed with a black woman, but it's against the law if a white woman goes out and has a sexual attraction or goes to bed with a black male. The tables are turned, the laws are irrefutable. And what the white man has done to make it right has been nothing less than scandalous.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I think we compartmentalize the topics of race, racism, slavery, everything related to that. We compartmentalize it, and we think, as far as our education system is concerned, we talk about it during African American History Month as if this is only African American history. I have news for people. This is American history.
Yes.
This is something we all share and we should all be talking about, because until we all start talking about it, until children start becoming aware of what our history really is, I don't think we're going to make any progress as a country.
No, when you have a Halloween costume that's basically black and then builds from there, you're not really going to change it. Yes, there are a few dark-skinned comic book heroes now, but compared to most of them, they're all white.
Yes, and what you just said reminded me of the school, the high school I went to when I was growing up in my very sort of sheltered, racist neighborhood in Dallas, Texas.
Oh, my.
What's that?
Oh, my. I lived in Houston, and they're still fighting the Civil War down there.
Oh, and or still, I'd say it's pre-Civil War. It's the antebellum South that they're trying to uphold. In the school I went to, I just read an article in Mother Jones recently that described a tradition that this school apparently engages in every year, which is they have something they call Thug Day in the school I used to go to. And that's when all these white students, and who are mainly blonde, I would, because it's an all-white public high school in Dallas called Highland Park High School. They dress up. They call it Thug Day. and they dress up as African Americans. They wear afros, and the boys wear their pants real low down around their knees, and they think that's really funny. And then they have another day where it's called Fiesta Day, where they wear sombreros, and the boys bring weed whackers to school to pretend like they're people who mow other people's lawns.
Hey, those people make good money, and they better be careful, because when Texas succeeds from the Union, they will find themselves cut off from the rest of the United States. I mean, they've been trying to proclaim themselves a republic now for a couple hundred years. So
believe me, I grew up I'm well aware of that. Yeah.
They even have when my parents went to England, my mom made a rubbing of the country of Texas over there with her own country.
How exactly did that work?
I'm not quite sure, but she came home with a rubbing. So obviously Texas was really wanting to do that, I guess, during the Civil War. Maybe they filed papers with England. Who knows?
Wow.
I know that when I was living down in Texas and I had to explain certain things to my son, and he was dark-skinned to begin with, and he came home cleated one day from compliments of the football team. And I walked in an assembly and walked up to the microphone, and the principal never forgave me for this, and I said, how is it you folks spend millions of dollars going out into the beach and to the Caribbean during the winter months so you can turn black?
That is one of the essential ironies.
Why you do this? If you feel that black is beneath you, and I got to tell you, the African Americans were hooting and howling by that time, and they practically threw me out of the school. But I was just so pissed, I didn't care.
Well, that is one of the essential ironies, isn't it?
Yes, I still have trouble with it. I don't understand why, if they don't like black people, why do they go out to the beach, slather all this garbage on them, and then brown themselves, and then parade around the streets of Houston or Florida or even California and say, oh, look how beautiful I am with my tan. I just sprayed it on.
Well, I'm sure one could do, and probably there have been studies on why this is, and certainly envy.
Really? I was never very envious of them. I couldn't understand the irony of it.
Yeah.
Even as a child, I just could not wrap my head around it. And
I meant the envy of the people spending inordinate amount of times getting suntans who might harbor racist views. It seems like that possibly could come from a point of view of envy. But
well, maybe you could write a book about the KKK who go out and get a suntan, and while they're hanging somebody, something slips and it shows a really dark-skinned white person with a fake tan. I don't know.
Right. Well, I have the book I'm working on right now. I am hoping that I can include at least a reference to the KKK. But I must tell you that as a nonfiction picture book writer, I've found it very difficult to get things like that into my books, because I'm told by my editors and by everyone that that's too disturbing, can't talk about that stuff to kids. So I feel like I'm waging a battle on a couple fronts with these books that I write, because it's not really. I mean, I'm proud of my editors for publishing books like this and other ones that I've done recently. It takes courage, but it's it is a battle to get books about this sort of subject matter out there.
Yes.
Because it's not, because publishers are businesses. They're not they don't necessarily want controversy. They don't.
They want books that sell, and I understand that because I write books, and my protagonists are African American or Hispanic. And I was told quite bluntly by several people, most of them Asians, well, if you make them white, we can place your books with no problem. But the fact that you write with black characters and Hispanic characters, and the only white people are the bad guys, well, who's going to buy books like that? And I felt like saying the teenagers will, because they don't care.
Right. It's so funny, these market studies, the nervousness people have about things like that. What is it really based on? Is it based on it's just based on their own fears,
It is, and it's based on the fears that they do not want to see coming at them. I mean, when I graduated from high school is when all the race riots started and the hippie movement was coming in, and, you know, Mark Rudd, the guy who was in charge of all this, had just graduated from high school the year before, and people were really getting upset about it. But the fact of the matter is that it's called change, and it's a lot easier to stomach than a revolution.
Right.
Which, according to Thomas Jefferson, we're overdue by a couple hundred years here, but moving right along. So I really commend you on this book. I think it's an excellent book. I'm delighted that your artist made him light-skinned, because there's certainly a lot of black kids out there who are white. And
absolutely, yeah. That's a whole other area, isn't it?
Yes,
you know,
it
recognizing
really is.
that as as a fact of life.
Yes.
And in fact, in the Hennings family, as I point out in this book, amongst the children, the two oldest ones fulfilled Thomas Jefferson's goal for them, that they should quote unquote pass as white by escaping to Washington D.C., changing their names, and abandoning their original identities. So,
and some of them do that because to them it's more preferable than to stay as being black. And I find that fascinating. In fact, there was a TV show up in Canada that addressed something like that, where a black woman passed herself as white, and her white husband didn't know it. And when he finally found out, he was furious, but then he sort of calmed down and thought, what the hell? I'm not perfect either. And, that was that. But they did touch on that, whereas they'll show interracial people kissing on TV, but they will not show a white-black on TV kissing somebody else. And I find that interesting. It's almost like they're still too afraid to go in that direction. Yeah,
it absolutely. Madison Hennings' youngest brother, he was the second youngest, but his younger brother, Eston, identified as African American up to a certain point, but then when things started heating up before the Civil War, it was a matter of self-preservation, and he moved to a different state, moved to Wisconsin, and changed his identity to white. And his skin color, as was Madison's, was light enough that he could do that. All of this takes place within historical context.
Yes, it does. So, Jonah, please tell everybody where they can find you at the International Miami Book Festival when you are down there for reading or for a panel discussion or just moseying around, where they can find you on the World Wide Web, where they can find you in your book.
Yes, well, you can always find me at my website, jonahwinter.com, and I don't have the exact time in front of me, but I believe it is noon on Sunday, November 20th.
Yes.
At the main outdoor children's book tent at the Miami Book Fair, and that is where you can find me. I'm afraid I am a bit of a dinosaur in one way, in that I don't have a social media presence. I'm not on any of those social media sites. So you can find me in the flesh, and you can find me through my website, and
That's the safest way to do it. So, ladies and gentlemen and children of all ages, please get down to the International Miami Book Festival. It's being held in downtown Miami in association with Dade College. I've been there before. They have a plethora of activities for kids, like 2 years all the way up to, 103, should you identify with being still a child inside your adultish body. And they have all kinds of things. All the authors are down there, so if you ever wanted to speak to an author, this is your opportunity. Kids, that's how my kid started. We used to go to Comic-Con and talk to all the comic illustrators and the companies and show them their wares. And before he knew it, he was sitting behind a desk and doing the drawing because he was, gifted that way. but not everybody's
great.
like that. Yes. But do go down to the festival. It's from November 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th. And anybody from all over the world, international and national acclaimed authors in any genre, nonfiction as well as fiction. And my name is James Madison Hennings, author, Jonah Winter, illustrator, Terry Widener. I have a 3-year-old grandson, and this is what he's getting for Christmas. So,
yay. Happy to hear that.
Yes, I know. Well, I only have about 60 books, and, various and sundry people have been slotted for them. So if you would like to listen to this interview, and of course you will, you want to go over to PassionateWorldRadioNetwork.com, Twitter.com, at CAULDWELL, Facebook.com/PWR Network, GooglePlus.com/Lillian Caldwell. So please come and join us, and thank you all very much for listening. And before you go away and stray, I don't have my little book of sayings here, so if you want to see the view, climb the mountain. In other words, come on down to the International Miami Book Festival. Thank you all very much for listening, and remember, please keep listening. Thank you.